In the early 17th century, the Dutch, like other European powers, set their eyes on India. An era marked by exploration and the pursuit of riches, the Dutch formed the Dutch East India Company in 1602, a move that would forever change the course of history. Their initial focus wasn't India, but the Spice Islands. Lured by the scent of cloves, nutmeg, and mace, the Dutch carved a path across the seas. But by around 1605, the Dutch found themselves in India, a land as diverse as the spices they sought. They began establishing trade posts in various parts of the country. Pulicat on the Coromandel coast was their first foothold, followed by Surat, a bustling port city on the western coast, and Cochin, a spice trading hub in the south. Thus, the Dutch began their journey in India, driven by the allure of spices and the promise of lucrative trade. The Dutch presence in India wasn't merely transitory, they left an indelible mark on the regions they inhabited. The Dutch influence in India was profound and far-reaching, particularly in the realm of trade. They were, in fact, the first Europeans to break the Portuguese monopoly on the spice trade. Their East India Company, established in the early 17th century, was instrumental in securing a significant share of the highly lucrative spice trade, particularly in the coveted commodities of nutmeg, mace, and cloves. But the Dutch influence was not confined to trade alone. They recognized the importance of education and laid the foundation for schools in the regions where they were established. These schools catered not only to the children of Dutch settlers, but also to the local population, providing an early impetus for the spread of Western education in India. More importantly, the Dutch brought with them the art of printing. They set up the first printing press in India, in the town of Tranquebar, Tamil Nadu, in the early 18th century. The first book printed on this press was a translation of the Bible in the local Tamil language. This was a significant milestone, not only in the history of printing in India, but also in the propagation of literacy and education. The Dutch also left their mark on Indian architecture. The Dutch palace in Cochin, Kerala, is a testament to their architectural prowess. Its hybrid style, combining traditional Kerala architecture with colonial influences, is a unique representation of the cultural exchange that took place during this period. The Dutch also built several other notable buildings, including the Fort Geldria in Pulicat, Tamil Nadu, and the Dutch Cemetery in Surat, Gujarat. These buildings, many of which still stand today, serve as enduring reminders of the Dutch presence in India. Even though the Dutch weren't the most dominant European power in India, their influence is evident across various aspects of Indian society. Their legacy, woven into the fabric of India's history, continues to be felt even today. Like all good things, the Dutch era in India had to come to an end. The late 18th century saw the decline of the Dutch East India Company. A series of financial crises and a lack of effective leadership meant that the once mighty company was faltering. Then came the decisive Anglo-Dutch Treaty of 1824, a pivotal moment that led to the British taking over the Dutch settlements in India. The treaty was more than just a legal document. It signified a shift in power, marking the end of Dutch dominance and the commencement of British rule. The Dutch, who had once been major players in India's trade dynamics, were reduced to mere spectators as the British Empire expanded. Following the treaty, the Dutch gradually withdrew, their influence receding like the tide. Their final departure from India was a quiet one, devoid of the grandeur that had once characterized their presence. And so, the Dutch chapter in India's history closed, leaving behind a legacy that continues to be felt today. The Dutch stint in India, though not as long or as dominant as other European powers, was significant in its own right. They arrived in the early 17th century, establishing trading posts along the coastal regions, particularly in the Coromandel and Malabar coasts. They were driven by the allure of spices and the promise of profitable trade. Their influence extended beyond commerce. They introduced new educational systems, brought the printing press to India, and left a distinct architectural imprint, with the Dutch palace in Kochi being a prime example. Their influence, though subtle, was profound and has shaped parts of India in ways that are still visible today. The Dutch eventually departed, leaving behind a legacy that's a blend of commerce, culture, and architecture. The echoes of the Dutch era still resonate in parts of India, telling a tale of a time when the Dutch, driven by the scent of spices and the promise of trade, made India their home.
हमारे चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कीजिए और साथ ही बेल आइकन दबाएं, जिससे समय पर नोटिफिकेशन आपको मिलती रहे। आपका एक लाइक हमें प्रोत्साहित करता है जिससे कि हम नई वीडियो बनाएं। थैंक्स फॉर योर सपोर्ट।